Divorce proceedings in Singapore involve several stages and documents. Proving fault and guilt, such as who committed adultery or who was responsible for causing the breakdown of the marriage in court, doesn't provide significant advantages regarding property division, child custody, and other conditions typically. What's the difference between an uncontested divorce and a contested divorce in Singapore? Divorce is never easy, but it can be even more complicated if it becomes a hotly contested legal battle. Singapore has a more straightforward and faster option called an simplified uncontested divorce. This option is often considered and used because it involves minimal court proceedings. A simplified uncontested divorce is a quicker and simpler way to end marriage in Singapore because both spouses agree on all the reasons for divorce and all related ancillary matters. In this type of divorce, both spouses agree on ending the marriage and other vital aspects like child custody, asset division, and financial support for the wife and children. To qualify for this, both aspects must be agreed upon completely. Specific requirements must also be met to file for this in Singapore. Marriage duration. The marriage should have been for at least 3 years. Connection to Singapore. At least one spouse should have strong ties to Singapore, either as a citizen, a domiciled resident, or someone who has lived in Singapore for at least 3 years. As you may already know, there are 4 recognized reasons or facts to prove the irretrievable breakdown of a marriage in Singapore. Adultery, when one spouse has had sexual relations outside of the marriage and the other spouse finds it intolerable to continue living with him or her. Unreasonable behavior. This includes physical or mental abuse or other behaviors that make it impossible for the person to continue in the marriage. For example, if a spouse works excessively or neglects the family, it can be considered unreasonable behavior sometimes. Desertion. If one spouse has left the other for at least 2 years without contact or intention of returning. Separation. When spouses have lived apart by mutual consent for at least 3 years or without consent for more than 4 years. Divorce proceedings in Singapore involve several stages and documents. Stage 1. File divorce papers, including the writ for divorce, statement of claim, statement of particulars, the affidavit of evidence, the draft consent order, attend the court hearing, receive the interim judgment for divorce, which takes usually around a month. For uncontested divorce, it's longer for contested cases. Stage 2. File affidavits, go through the discovery process to identify assets and other aspects of the divorce. Attend an ancillary hearing to discuss material provisions following the divorce. Obtain the final divorce judgment, which becomes final after 3 months. What's the difference between an uncontested divorce and a contested divorce in Singapore? In an uncontested divorce, both spouses agree on ending the marriage and its consequences. This process is quicker, less costly, and doesn't require a long court proceedings to take place. In contrast, a contested divorce occurs when the spouse disagrees on the divorce or its related matters. This process is typically longer, involves more paperwork, and may require a lot more court appearances. Why is an uncontested divorce typically more preferred? And what are some advantages? Simplicity. It's less complicated for everyone involved, including the spouses, lawyers, and judges. The speed. The process is much quicker, taking only a few months. Lower costs. Legal fees are much lower compared to contested cases. No court appearance. You typically don't have to appear in court for an uncontested divorce. In Singapore, proving fault and guilt, such as who committed adultery or who was responsible for causing the breakdown of the marriage in court, doesn't provide significant advantages regarding property division, child custody, and other conditions typically. Ultimately, remember that an uncontested divorce is often preferred because it's simpler, faster, and more cost-effective than a contested divorce. And proving guilt or fault in court doesn't affect significant benefits eventually. So, now you know. If you found this helpful, follow and subscribe to our channel for more legal things.